These are the two most important questions. A month ago, WHO and partners launched the SET, or the ACT Accelerator, that speed up the development, production, and equitable distribution of vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics for COVID-19. Today, we're joining 37 countries and numerous partners to launch the COVID-19 Technology Access Pool, or CTAP. CTAP was first proposed by His Excellency President Carlos Alvarado of Costa Rica, and I would like to thank His Excellency, the President, for and solidarity. CTAP is a sister initiative of the ACT Accelerator and offers concrete actions to achieve the objective of the ACT Accelerator, which is equitable access. CTAP has 5 priorities. First, public disclosure of gene sequencing research. Second, public disclosure of all clinical trial results. Third, encouraging governments and research funders to include clauses in contracts with pharmaceutical companies about equitable distribution and publication of trial data. Fourth, licensing treatments and vaccines to large and small producers. And fifth, promoting open innovation models and technology transfer that increase local manufacturing and supply capacity. Through CTAP, we're inviting companies or governments that develop an effective therapeutic to contribute the patent to the medicines patent pool, which would then sub-license the patent to generic manufacturers. CTAP is voluntary and builds on the success of the medicines patent pool in expanding access to treatments for HIV and hepatitis C. WHO recognizes the important role that patents play in fueling innovation. But this is a time when people must take priority. Tools to prevent, detect, and treat COVID-19 are global public goods that must be accessible by all people. Science is giving us solutions, but to make the solutions work for everyone, we need solidarity. COVID-19 has highlighted the inequalities of our world, but it's also offering us an opportunity to bring those inequalities and build a fairer world, a world in which health is not a privilege for the few, but a common good. Now it gives me enormous pleasure to introduce His Excellency Carlos Alvarado, the President of Costa Rica. Muchas gracias, Presidente Alvarado, mi hermano. Mucho gusto por su liderazgo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. I think it's muted.
Okay.
Hannah, can you?
Mi hermano, can you hear me? Gracias, Dr. Tedros, mi hermano, my brother. Un saludo.
My greetings.
Para Costa Rica es un honor ser parte de una acción colectiva que envía un mensaje potente a toda la humanidad sobre las cosas maravillosas que podemos y somos capaces de impulsar en conjunto para el resguardo y el bienestar de todas las personas. Hoy se trata de hacer un llamado a la esperanza, sobre todo para las personas más vulnerables en las distintas partes del mundo. Hoy, líderes estatales, altos representantes de organismos multilaterales, del sector privado, de la academia y de la sociedad civil, unimos voces para anunciar que hemos asumido un compromiso solidario con la vida, la dignidad humana y la cooperación internacional. La pandemia de COVID-19 marcará un antes y un después en la historia de la humanidad, no solo por lo que ha significado para nuestros sistemas de salud y para la convivencia y relacionamiento entre personas, sino también porque, a pesar de la crisis que hemos tenido que enfrentar, tenemos la oportunidad
we have an opportunity to take joint decisions which will change for good the future of the world population in the short and medium
Se presenta ante nosotros el desafío de toda
so
una
we have
vida,
a challenge of a
garantizar el
lifetime
acceso
to guarantee
universal a
universal
las
access
tecnologías
to
sanitarias
health
que requerimos para hacer
technologies
frente
that we
al
need to
COVID-19.
face COVID-19.
La promesa de descubrimientos científicos seguros, efectivos y asequibles, como tratamientos y medicamentos, vacunas, debe ser el vehículo que oriente nuestras acciones y nos permita sobrellevar una crisis que ha dejado tanto dolor en tantas comunidades alrededor del mundo. Sin embargo, de nada nos sirve alcanzar estos increíbles desarrollos tecnológicos si no podemos garantizar el acceso asequible a las tecnologías. Al inicio de la pandemia, solicité al doctor general de la OMS, mi estimado amigo y hermano, el doctor Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, que construyéramos juntos un mecanismo que nos permitiera poner a disposición de todos los estados del mundo las tecnologías en salud que se desarrollen en la lucha contra el virus y la enfermedad que ocasiona. Durante las últimas semanas, el esfuerzo conjunto nos ha permitido construir este llamado solidario de acción, mediante el cual tendremos una plataforma para compartir de manera abierta, voluntaria y colaborativa el conocimiento, los datos y la propiedad intelectual que se genere alrededor del mundo, convirtiéndola en un bien público global, un bien público global. Durante la Asamblea Mundial de la Salud número 73, realizada de manera innovadora hace tan solo 2 semanas, muchos Estados miembros de la Organización Mundial de la Salud alzaron la voz y respaldaron el desarrollo de esta iniciativa, la cual permitirá que todos los países tengamos acceso a las soluciones que nos permitan protegernos entre todos, asegurándonos de no dejar a nadie atrás. En este camino se han sumado países de todas las regiones y rincones del mundo, a quienes les expreso mi más profundo agradecimiento, dado que han sobrepuesto el bienestar de su población por encima de cualquier otro fundamento, y profundo agradecimiento para Argentina, Bangladesh, Barbados, Bélgica, Belice, Bután, Brasil, Chile, Ecuador, Egipto, Honduras, Indonesia, Líbano, Luxemburgo, Malasia, Maldivas, México, Mongolia, Mozambique, Noruega, Omán, Países Bajos, Pakistán, Palau, Panamá, Perú, Portugal, República Dominicana, San Vicente y las Granadinas, Sudáfrica, Sri Lanka, Sudán, Timor del Este, Uruguay y Zimbabue. Aquellos jefes de Estado y jefes de gobierno que aún no se han sumado a este esfuerzo, los invito a no dejar pasar la oportunidad y ser parte de un hecho histórico para la humanidad. Les garantizo que nada será más reconfortante y gratificante que, dentro de unos años, cuando historiadores analicen este momento crucial, vean que todos nuestros países fueron parte de los actores internacionales que dieron un paso adelante y tomaron una decisión visionaria y, más importante aún, profundamente humana. Como gobernantes debemos respaldar este llamado solidario, declarando nuestro apoyo al reservorio, en inglés llamado COVID-19 Technology Access Pool, de conocimientos de propiedad intelectual y datos. Debemos alentar a nuestras empresas públicas y privadas, así como a nuestras instituciones de investigación, para que contribuyan de manera voluntaria a la plataforma de intercambio. Se nos han sumado igualmente actores del ámbito internacional que han dedicado su labor a la búsqueda del bienestar de las poblaciones que más sufren. Su vocación de servicio y proactividad merecen también mi reconocimiento. Igualmente al sector privado, se nos ha acercado con el afán de conocer la propuesta e identificar cómo pueden ser parte de ella. Celebro este paso al frente de quienes han entendido que solo en alianza desde lo público y lo privado podremos construir un futuro mejor. Un futuro donde todos los brillantes avances científicos de nuestras sociedades sean pilares en la construcción de un horizonte que dignifique cada vida. Un futuro donde nuestras capacidades sean potenciadas para seguir cimentando el camino del desarrollo sostenible. Para citar un ejemplo de buenas prácticas en Costa Rica, el sector privado también ha ofrecido su contribución. El compromiso de la industria es necesario para hacer eco a este llamado solidario. Boston Scientific, en conjunto con la Universidad de Minnesota, bajo el concepto de solidaridad y responsabilidad social corporativa, le ha brindado la preaprobación al utilizar de forma abierta el diseño del ventilador Covent, con el fin de que este dispositivo médico pueda ser fabricado de manera local a través de las compañías que así lo deseen. La solidaridad dentro y entre los países y el sector privado es esencial si queremos superar estos tiempos difíciles. Necesitamos liberar todo el poder de la ciencia para ofrecer innovaciones que sean escalables, utilizables y que beneficien a todos en todas partes al mismo tiempo. Solo por medio de la aceleración de la investigación y del desarrollo de tecnologías sanitarias contra el COVID-19 es que podremos salir adelante. Sin embargo, ningún Estado podrá haber superado la pandemia hasta que todos la hayamos superado, por lo que estos desarrollos deben ser asequibles para todos. Por eso invito a las industrias y sectores académicos, así como he invitado a la industria y academia costarricense, a que registre y comparta su conocimiento, propiedad intelectual y datos de tecnologías sanitarias existentes y nuevas para combatir COVID-19 por el bien de toda la humanidad. La Universidad de Costa Rica ha desarrollado y pone a disposición de la humanidad un protocolo para la manufactura a partir del plasma de pacientes convalecientes de preparaciones inyectables de inmunoglobulinas humanas hiperinmunes contra el SARS-CoV-2 para el tratamiento de pacientes en estado severo y crítico de la infección. También estas dos iniciativas relacionadas con el diseño y validación de hisopos para las pruebas diagnósticas del COVID-19 y el desarrollo de los prototipos de respiradores para posteriormente trasladar el conocimiento del sector industrial. El Instituto Tecnológico de Costa Rica se hace presente en este repositorio y nos ha autorizado para que Costa Rica ponga a disposición internacional 3 diferentes iniciativas que se trabajan para combatir el COVID-19. El desarrollo de mascarillas tipo N95, el diseño de cobertores para camillas de ambulancias para la Cruz Roja, el ventilador mecánico de accionamiento neumático. Por su parte, el Centro Nacional de Innovaciones Biotecnológicas, CNBIOT, pone a disposición de este repositorio un proyecto que consiste en optimizar protocolos escalables de detección de virus SARS-CoV-2 que prescinden del uso de kits comerciales y minimiza la dependencia de sistemas robóticos. El objetivo es crear alternativas en caso de escasez de kits y facilitar su implementación en regiones con acceso limitado a sistemas robóticos. La propuesta está inspirada en casos de éxito obtenidos en Uruguay, España y por el consorcio COVID, pero se adaptó a la realidad regional y los resultados se pueden compartir libremente. Nuestra sociedad civil, siempre activa y pujante, es fundamental en el proceso, defendiendo la iniciativa y abogando para que más y más actores se integren de manera solidaria. Por ejemplo, su papel será importante para convencer a los titulares de los derechos de que se necesitan ser socios en esta iniciativa. El conocimiento compartido, la propiedad intelectual y los datos abiertos cristalizarán nuestros esfuerzos colectivos para avanzar en el descubrimiento científico, el desarrollo tecnológico y el amplio intercambio de los beneficios del avance científico y sus aplicaciones basadas en el desarrollo de la salud. Esta iniciativa establece un modelo viable para promover el acceso basado en la equidad, la ciencia sólida, la colaboración abierta y la solidaridad global. La solidaridad global acelerará la ciencia y ampliará el acceso a los bienes públicos globales para que sean juntos y así podamos vencer el virus. Cada compromiso, cada paso al frente cuenta. Nuestros pueblos nos observan y esperan liderazgos capaces de trabajar colectivamente por soluciones verdaderas, por acciones conjuntas, que nos permitan sin egoísmos reconstruir un mundo donde la salud pública universalmente resguardada sea un bien. Confío plenamente en el potencial humano, su capacidad de innovación y en su comprensión de que cada vida es una historia, son afectos, son ilusiones, y que vale el esfuerzo de trabajar sin descanso, de manera colaborativa, sin egoísmos, en multilateralismo, sector público, privado, academias, empresas, sociedad civil, para que pronto ninguna vida se apague a causa de esta pandemia. De corazón, a todos los participantes de este foro, de este lanzamiento y de esta iniciativa, muchas gracias, porque lo que queremos es apoyar a todas las personas de todo el planeta que hoy lo necesitan. Muchísimas gracias.
Thanks for that. I'm going to now give the floor over to the Honourable Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister for Barbados. Prime Minister Mottley, I hope you're there and can hear us, and you have the microphone.
¿Tienen la lista?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Today I join in solidarity with President of Costa Rica, my friend Carlos Alvarado Quesada, and my brother Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the Director General of the WHO, and indeed my colleague heads of government, to add Barbados' strong support for this launch of this important platform. I also want at this stage to commend and to thank the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, my sister Amina Mohammed, for her strong support at the outset of the launch of this platform. Like few other threats in our history, this pandemic shows up our common humanity in the most unequivocal of ways. Through our interconnectedness and our interdependence, the virus has reached all corners of our globe in a matter of months. It is almost like a horror story. Each of us has a story of human and economic loss, and what we write on history's page as our success story is yet to be determined. My friends, I tell you that it is our common humanity that brought us to this point, and it will only be through our common humanity that we will emerge from it. Now let us pause for a minute and think why. The reality is that democracy and multilateralism promised for both the countries and the world respectively that there would be a framework of fairness, transparency, and accountability for those who choose to agree to the compact that led to the democracy or led to the multilateralism. Regrettably, the last few months have brought us closest to the wild, wild west of fictitious fame. We have in the small island developing states stories enough to tell about lack of access to basic medical equipment, medical supplies, and we fear that when the therapeutics and the vaccines come, unless we assert the right of the multilateral institutions of our world to create that corridor of fairness, to reinforce the transparency and accountability that we need, then we are not going to fulfill the promise of the United Nations and the corresponding institutions that came out of the 1945 Pact that allowed the world to have a new order. Access to new data and health products, therefore, to treat and prevent COVID-19 patients must not create winners and losers. And small states, who are often the casualties of market conditions, cannot be dispensable in the wake of this disease. I pause again to indicate that the consortium, the professional consortium being established by the Global Fund in order to procure many of the in vitro diagnostics, cannot simply use a proxy of maternal mortality to be able to determine who should benefit. Because if they do, 13 countries in this part of the world, 10 from within the Caribbean, will be at a serious disadvantage. And we cannot command the types of orders because of our lack of size in order to be able to guarantee access. Barbados therefore calls on all stakeholders to make the tools of this recovery that the WHO and others are working on a global public good. I heard Dr. Tedros just now outline very clearly what we needed to hear as small island developing states. We therefore also encourage all flexibilities in the licensing of these products to quickly scale up global production. And we ask for full cooperation with the UN's Technology Access Partnership so that the global community could exit this crisis together on fair and equitable terms. For this is the promise of the multilateral institutions upon their formation to the people of the world, and it is the promise of democracies at the time of the settlement of independence to our people. Surely, we all know that our markets will recover, and undoubtedly, market competition will return. But for now, it is time to heal. And as we heal, it is time to reflect on the values and principles that led to the modern settlement of the global community in which we function, and to recognize that the challenges that are literally undermining that settlement must be fought on head on, and that the only way we can fight it head on is by those of us who constitute the majority, even if not the power of the few who are at the top, to come together and to assert that transparency, fairness, market access, and accountability must matter and must be attained for the people of the world. I thank you and I wish you all the very best in your deliberations.
Prime Minister Motley, many thanks indeed for that statement of support for this initiative. Fairness and equitable access is clearly the key buzzwords as we continue through this discussion. I'm going to move now to speak to Axel Jacobsen, who is the State Secretary in the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Norway. Mr. Jacobsen, I believe you are on the line, and if you are, then make sure you're unmuted and please go ahead with your statement.
Thank you, Hannah. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, yes. The wonders of technology. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. President Alvarado, Director General Dr. Tedros, colleagues, I'm honored on behalf of my country, Norway, to co-sponsor the Solidarity Call to Action, to establish a platform for open, collaborative sharing of knowledge, data, and intellectual property on existing and new health tools to combat COVID-19. As I speak, the official counts have passed 360,000 deaths globally from COVID-19, and the true figure is likely to be substantially higher. The pandemic represents a tragedy for its victims and their families, and economic hardships for hundreds of millions around the globe. If there's one thing this pandemic has reminded us, it is that challenges that are global can only be faced efficiently if we act together in a coordinated and global manner. It has also reminded us how vulnerable we are when we are confronted with a new virus without efficient tools to fight it. It is now of paramount importance that the world's best researchers and developers join forces in an unprecedented manner to provide us with these tools. Again, global challenges needs global solutions. I'm convinced that the only way to succeed is to collaborate and share knowledge and technologies to have the necessary tools as soon as possible. Once we have effective medicines and vaccines, they should be distributed in a fair and equitable way, according to public health criteria. This is the only way to curb the acute pandemic in the most efficient manner. The World Health Organization plays a vital role in facilitating the necessary sharing of knowledge. Rest assured that Norway stands firmly behind you in these efforts. Thank you again, President Alvarado, for raising this issue and for bringing us together today. Thank you very much.
Axel Jakobsen, thank you very much indeed. We are now going to move on and speak to Her Excellency Ambassador Monique van Dalen from the Netherlands. The ambassador is the representative of the Netherlands to the United Nations in Geneva. I believe you are on the line. I think I saw you earlier. So, Ambassador, you have the floor.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President, Madam Prime Minister, Director General. The Netherlands supports the need for international cooperation and solidarity in combating COVID-19. The sharing of knowledge, intellectual property and data can play an important role in the development of vaccines or treatments that are affordable and accessible to all people in the world. This is especially true for knowledge that is created with public funding. The sharing must, in order to be effective, have a voluntary basis. We acknowledge that we need industry as a valuable partner. Their capacity to innovate, their expertise in development, production and distribution of vaccines and treatments, and their willingness to take risks must be valued alongside international cooperation, public investments and the sharing of knowledge. The main goal that we all want to achieve is a vaccine or treatment that is affordable and accessible to us all. In an innovation model based on the pooling of knowledge is, next to possible alternative models, a valuable instrument to pursue this aim. We thank Costa Rica and the WHO for their leadership and look forward to continuing to work together in fighting this public health crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We now move to Her Excellency Ambassador Maria Ferrani, who is the permanent representative of Brazil to the United Nations in Geneva. Ambassador Ferrani, if you can hear me clearly, then please do unmute yourself and you have the floor.
Okay. Director General, President Carlos Alvarado of Costa Rica, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure. You listen to me. Are you listening to me? Yes? Okay, so I'll start again. You have to listen again. Director General, President Carlos Alvarado of Costa Rica, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Brazil is honored to support this solidarity call to action and to participate in this launch event. We thank President Alvarado for his pioneering proposal and relentless work to bring all relevant partners together at this point. Access to quality, safe, efficient and affordable health technology remains a top priority for Brazil, all the more so in the context of this pandemic. Access to affordable medicines is key to build and strengthen sustainable and resilient health systems to achieve universal health coverage and to respond to health emergencies. In the case of COVID-19, Universal and equitable access to life-saving technologies is the only way to ensure that everyone, everywhere, will be safe and able to return to normalcy. Brazil is gratified to see that the global strategy and plan of action on public health, innovation, and intellectual property is one of the references for the call to action. Together with many partners, Brazil has led efforts to have this global strategy fully implemented to the benefit of all. We are confident that the call to action will be a major achievement in the public health worldwide, helping us all to rise up to the challenge posed by COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Ambassador, thank you very much indeed. We now take you over to Portugal. Dr. Rui Ivo is the President of the National Medicines Authority in Portugal and joins us live as well. Dr. Ivo, you have the floor.
Hello. You can hear me?
We can hear you very clearly, yes. Go ahead, please, sir.
Thank you very much. President Carlos Alvarado of Costa Rica, Excellency, Director General of WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, distinguished participants from other states and institutions, representatives from academia, international partners, industry, civil society. It is with great pleasure that I send you warm greetings from Portugal and add our voice to the call to action proposed by Costa Rica and supported by the World Health Organization. A call that aims at ensuring equitable access to health technologies through sharing of knowledge and data indispensable to the diagnosis, prevention, treatment and response to the pandemic outbreak of COVID-19. This initiative calls for a global priority in equitable access to health products and refers as to the importance of ensuring the principles of sustainability, availability and accessibility of safe, effective and quality health products, which more than ever are fundamental to tackling the current pandemic. It also stresses the need to guarantee the production, supply chain and equitable distribution of essential health products to our fellow citizens. Finally, considering the potentially devastating economic and social repercussions for health, particularly for developing countries, this action also calls for effective international cooperation in order to strengthen our health systems for this and future pandemics. Knowing that we all share these values, Portugal joins this call to action and its commitment to the collective success in combating COVID-19. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dr. Ivo, thank you very much. We do now have a representative from South Africa. Now we have the Health Minister, the Honourable Minister, Dr. Zwelini Mkhize, who is on the line for us. Dr. Mkhize, please, your supporting statement for this initiative.
Very much. Excellencies, from South Africa, on behalf of President Ramaphosa, I take this opportunity to congratulate the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, and the President of the Republic of Costa Rica, His Excellency Mr. Carlos Alvarado Quesada, for launching this important initiative. We also appreciate the cross-regional efforts to realize equitable global access to COVID-19 health technologies as a critical response measure, as now more than ever the world needs this solidarity and cooperation to pool knowledge, intellectual property, and data for existing and new diagnostics, therapeutics, vaccines, and for the detection, prevention, and treatment of COVID-19. The solidarity call to action calls on key stakeholders and the global community to commit to undertaking actions which are urgently needed to advance the sharing of knowledge, intellectual property, and data that will benefit all humanity. It is also an important complement to the ACT Accelerator, which was launched a few weeks ago, which aims at making diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines for COVID-19 accessible on the basis of need worldwide. We'd also like to emphasize the importance of governments and international partners uniting around a global guarantee that ensures that when a safe and effective vaccine is developed, it is produced rapidly, at scale, and made available to all the people in all countries free of charge. We therefore call upon member states and the international community to support the solidarity call to action to promote health and to ensure the achievement of universal health coverage globally. Thank you very much.
Honourable Minister, many thanks indeed. As those who have been watching so far with this launch, the launch of this initiative, you will have noticed, and we've just had a series of supporting statements, and now we're going to move on to the next part, which is the moderated discussion. So we have a whole array of panellists who are going to be joining us. They're experts, they're industry experts, civil society representatives, members from academia as well. So first of all, I would like to welcome to the discussion Professor Mariano Mazzucato, who is a professor in economics of innovation and public value at the University College London. Professor, I believe you're on the line, and I'm just hoping that your video is on and your audio as well. And my first question to you really is, we're talking about a pool of technology. Why do we need this patent pool right now in the middle of this pandemic? Why is it necessary? There we go. Good. It said that the host wouldn't unmute me. Well, it's absolutely necessary because there's no other choice. I mean, really, from the policy perspective, because this is in fact a policy proposal, we need to frame it as actively shaping and creating this market in the way that needs to be governed to satisfy the mission, which is a vaccine that is globally accessible for free around the world. And that really means making sure that we govern the process from the intellectual property, which of course this common pool is focusing on, the pricing, the manufacturing capability, the international collaboration and solidarity instead of competition between countries. But to do that, it really means also thinking through, what does it mean when countries globally have been putting in billions really into the health innovation market, and then unfortunately, unlike the military, when they spend money on areas that they need, they then govern the process to make sure they win the war. Even though I don't like the war narrative, it does actually mean governing this process in such a way that the pricing, the IPR, the licensing, is done in such a way to really foster what the 21st century is about, which is collective intelligence. Okay, Mariano, that's really interesting. I want to bring in a fellow economist now. Professor Joseph Stiglitz is a professor at Columbia University. Professor, I'm wondering whether you agree with that, whether you think this type of technology access pool is necessary for the distribution of health technologies whenever we come up with them.
Absolutely. Intellectual property is a social construction that is designed to promote innovation. But in this particular case, the government is taking the key role in financing the research and having those ideas. The most important input into any research is other ideas. And that's why this pool of ideas is absolutely essential if there's going to be the fastest innovation possible. And speed is extraordinarily important in dealing with this pandemic. The longer it lasts, the more people die, but the worse the devastation for the economy. So it's actually important in this case, especially, that there be this kind of patent pool, that this knowledge be used quickly for the benefit of everybody in our global community.
I'm going to try and connect now with Dr. Jacques Dubochet. I'm hoping that he's on the line as well. Dr. Jacques Dubochet is a Swiss scientist. He's also a Nobel laureate. Sir, I can see you. Wonderful. I know that you've advocated for open science. I'm wondering if you can just explain to all of us what exactly you mean by that, and the role that you think that science should play going forward with this initiative.
Oui, vous voyez, le COVID-19 est un intéressant exemple d'un mal commun. Il est méchant avec nous tous, c'est tant qu'il existera quelque part dans le monde un malade. Ce malade est à nous tous. Et l'épidémie peut revenir, elle est avec nous tant qu'il y a des malades. C'est un mal commun. mais à tout mal commun, on peut faire correspondre un bien commun. Et ce bien commun, c'est cette connaissance que tout le monde est en train d'acquérir et qui, peut-être un jour, bientôt, va nous aider à soigner, à guérir un bien commun. Faisons ce bien commun. Et c'est justement l'idée de cette initiative que de la porter et que tout le monde travaille à cela. Mais il y a plus, parce que c'est un exercice formidable. Un exercice visible, on en a besoin et il nous prépare à un autre mal commun que nous avons besoin de traiter comme bien commun. C'est bien, c'est le problème du climat et le problème de la vie qui se dégrade dans l'ensemble de notre planète. Le virus, nous en sortirons et nous sommes au travail maintenant. Bravo, grâce à cette initiative. La planète, c'est la suivante. Et c'est pas la plus petite. Bonne chance à nous tous.
Boa sorte a todos nós.
Dr. Dubochet, many thanks. We are going to move on now and hopefully speak to Philippe Duneton, who is the ad interim executive director at Unitaid. Mr. Duneton, if you can hear me, I hope you can. Unitaid is a huge WHO partner and very much involved in this particular initiative. Can you just describe for those watching in the media, the public as well, what exactly Unitaid's role will be with rolling out this type of pool?
Hello, good afternoon and good morning for everybody. I hope you can hear me. So it's quite important as an initiative and call for action. Unitaid is fully involved in the development of therapeutic and diagnostic under the ACT call for action, and we are working closely with partners, but also with WHO, of course. And finding the right medicines, the right diagnostic and the right vaccine is not sufficient. As it was said, it's quite important to make sure that it can be affordable everywhere at a low price. As Unitaid, we have a lot of experience in making the connection between the innovation and, of course, the scale-up. And we have created 10 years ago now the medicine patent pool that is coping with of course, the industry to make affordable medicine for HIV and, of course, hepatitis C. It is a great success because now, as I speak, we have a million of people who can benefit from the latest innovation to fight HIV. And I think that this initiative today is very important also to make sure that we will have equitable access for the new vaccine, for the treatment that we need to fight COVID-19.
Thank you. Let's bring in Greg Alton. Greg is a former Chief Patents Officer for Gilead. Greg, if you can hear me, and I hope you can, we're obviously talking about patents now and intellectual property. I'm wondering, and I'm sure many other people watching this will be wondering as well, with all good intentions aside, what will it take to get companies on board to share their intellectual property and their knowledge?
Great. I think I'm on mute. Is that?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Okay, great. So first of all, let me just hold on. I got something weird on my screen here. Let me just start with, I think that, and Dr. Tedros said this initially, I'm a big supporter of intellectual property and the role that the industry's played in bringing medicine forward. However, with some things, I think that, the reason I'm very supportive of this call to action. First of all, in terms of fair and equitable access, I do think it would be fantastic to see the industry come forward and commit to working with the medicines patent pool or other mechanisms to make the intellectual property that comes out of the products that we develop, whether they're vaccines, therapeutics, or diagnostics, to be produced by generic manufacturers and then made available in fair and equitable terms globally. I do think to make this happen, we have to expect and respect that different companies will have different concerns that they're going to have to be addressed around whether, if this is truly voluntary, geographies, around different tierings of geographies, understanding that the poorest countries of the world, what's fair and equitable for them will differ from middle income countries, that will differ from wealthy countries. That's the way the industry is going to look at this. I think they're going to look at protection around their commercial interests, their indications, their uses. But I do think this can be done. We've seen this done we did in HIV, we've done this in hepatitis. I do think it's a good model, and I think I would love to see the industry come forward today while these products are being developed and make a commitment to make these products available for generic production, for local production, and get to what those terms are that will be acceptable. And it's going to vary from country to country. The other thing I just want to touch on why I'm very excited about this call to action is we don't have these products yet. We do not have the therapeutics. We do not have the vaccines. We do not have the diagnostics we need. I do also believe that the component of pooling knowledge, pooling data, creating a forum where this data can be shared to create those new breakthrough products is more important today given this epidemic than we've ever seen before. The human and economic costs. We cannot wait for the typical development timeline of a vaccine or a therapeutic. And I think this is an opportunity to see if this pooling of knowledge, sharing of information, sharing of intellectual property, of breaking down these barriers can expedite that development and allow these breakthroughs to come through. And if this works in COVID-19 or in this particular epidemic, maybe then this model could be used for some of the neglected diseases around the world that the current IP and industry model doesn't work well for.
Greg, thank you. I wonder if I can just bring back Professor Joseph Stiglitz to comment on that, really. I'm wondering whether, Professor, you think that we can perhaps use this concept of a patent pool as an opportunity to prepare for future crises as well?
Well, very much so. And what I wanted to emphasize are a couple points. One, the production of knowledge, as I said before, the most important ingredient is other knowledge. And when speed is important, as it is in this pandemic, you want that knowledge to be shared very quickly. What's interesting is that talking to my friends who are in the research community, that is happening at the individual level. But the question is, will the corporate level, will the institutional level buy into this? And what I find so exciting is the commitments being made all over the world in support of this. There's a second aspect that I want to highlight, which is we're going to need billions of doses of whatever medicines are going to be produced. That means it's really important to scale up at a low price. And the point, as long as this disease is going on in any part of the world, we're all going to be vulnerable. So it's really important in the interest of all of us that the prices be low. And that's not going to be achieved through monopoly pricing of the drug companies. It's only going to be true if we make sure that there's access to generics, to local producers, the widest dispersion of production. Now, there has to be return to those who are making their research, although much of the money is coming from the government. We should be clear about that. It's been de-risked. But we can do that through royalties, through charging for appropriate prices. That can be done within the patent pool. But what is really important here is the prioritization of speed and price accessibility. And that's really the idea behind this initiative, which I really commend you for.
And Mariana Mazzucato, I believe you want to come in on this.
Yes, I mean, I really think this is going to be the moment to make sure that we walk the talk of what kind of public-private collaborations should be in a space like this. And I don't think hepatitis C is a good example, with all due respect, Mr. Alton. This is actually the area where so many have written about, an area which received billions from, for example, the National Institutes of Health, 10 years of research, and then ultimately was marketed for $84,000 for a 12-week course, 1 pill a day. Now, that whole issue of how can we actually produce, again, as I was saying before, along the whole value chain, so governing the patent system, as we're talking about today, but also the pricing system that really reflects that collective effort that we're making in so many different parts of the health industry. This is a problem that goes beyond vaccines. Why this initiative is so important is we cannot risk getting it wrong. We have to today use this almost as a sandbox that hopefully will also create lessons for other parts of the sector. And in terms of what Joseph Stiglitz was saying, you know, of course patents are important. They have simply been massively abused. They are too upstream. We today are patenting the tools for research. They're way too strong, hard to license. They're too wide. They're used for strategic reasons. So again, using this moment to also think much more broadly, how can we make patents do what they were meant to do in the beginning instead of really just fueling a lot of rents and monopoly power?
Mariana, thank you. Charles Gore is the Executive Director of the Medicines Patent Pool, which Dr. Tedros mentioned at the beginning of this launch. And Charles Gore, if you can hear me clearly, based on your experience at MPP, when you have a patent pool already, can this scale and level of cooperation work? Does it work in practice?
Thank you very much indeed, Hannah. And just before I answer your question, I'd like to thank WHO and the Director General, Costa Rica, and President Alvarado for inviting us to be part of this initiative. Perhaps I should just talk a little bit about our history to answer your question. So we were set up by UNITAID in 2010 as a public health organization to do voluntary licensing to enable access to HIV medicines and also to facilitate the development of new treatments in the form of, for example, pediatric combinations, single pill combinations, but also to make sure that, first of all, access was as quick as possible and also as equitable as possible, as Dr. Tedros said, to make sure that no one was left behind. And the success of that model led to the global community asking us to expand our mandate, firstly to HIV, hepatitis C and TB, and then more recently to any patented medicine on the WHO essential medicines list. And the model involves, first of all, working with experts and the affected communities and civil society to identify the needs, then working with the pharmaceutical industry to actually get the licenses, which we can then sub-license to many generic manufacturers that allows both scale up to meet large demands, but also competition between the generic manufacturers to drive the price down. And then finally, with also governments and the affected communities to let them know what is available to make sure that they do access these affordable but high quality drugs as quickly as possible. And finally, to manage this whole process. I think you can see from the fact that, as Philip Duneton mentioned, we've had a huge impact. I'd just like to mention that our generic manufacturers have now delivered 12 billion doses in the last 10 years. And based on that, our board at the beginning of the COVID crisis decided that we should offer that expertise and experience to the global community if it would be useful, and consequently expanded our mandate to include anything that could be useful for COVID-19. And so we're now